This is JJ Humphrey. We're on Elephant in the Room. We're back with Bobby Cleveland. Bob, you know what? I don't have a pet peeve today. I have no pet peeve, save one. Save one. I do not like the I thought you put that dog out, Bob. Golly. Bob, what aggravates me, you call up these agencies. I've had to call these agencies here lately, and golly, you can't get them to answer. You can't get them to answer. You call up, you get a recording, they never call you back.
Well, that gummit.
Bob, you're going to have to kick that dog out.
Get it.
Hey, while Bob's taking care of his dog, let me tell you what's going on today. Here's where we're at. About in July of 25, right at the end of July, we filed a grand jury there in Payne County. What that grand jury was talking about, we had several cases where kids were being put in abusive homes. We had DHS falsifying records. We had rape cases that we wanted to discuss. We had we felt like a lawyer, some attorneys abusing what the court process. We had judges abusing the court process, and so we had requested the OSBI do an investigation into that. We had some government officials that stopped that investigation. So I had a committee, a criminal justice corrections committee. We had a hearing where we put on massive evidence that there was massive things wrong. We had much evidence, 2 hours. The majority of that committee, myself and some others, the senators and representatives, come along and said, hey, we want, and we could legally order an OSBI investigation. We had people come in from the government, stop that, didn't allow that. We had some emails that showed that they didn't want to have this hearing. So again, we were running into obstruction with having our hearing. We run into obstruction with getting the OSBI to investigate. Now, my question, why, if you have roughly 10, 12 legislators, senators, representatives that are asking for an OSBI investigation into child abuse, why would you stop that? Why, that's a head scratcher. And so when we filed this grand jury, we put people on that who what we felt were responsible for stopping that. We wanted an investigation into why would you stop that? Did you stop that? We had emails, we had evidence that would suggest they did. And so we put all these people on this grand jury. Now, shortly after filing it, we had Charles McCall and his attorney come into the case and filed what they call a motion to quash. Now that's illegal. They can legally do that if they have grounds to do it. But if your grounds are, you know what, I don't like my name being on it, that's not very good grounds, okay? And if you come out and you say, and I believe in one of the motions to quash, they come out and said that basically DHS was broken and that DHS did need investigating, but they didn't believe that Charles should be part of that. Well, guess what? If you're saying that needs to be done, I just don't like my name attached to it, then again, that's problematic because you're saying that it definitely needs to be done. So we have that being filed in. Now, here's the big kicker, Bob, and I've got to run all this down before we start talking. So here's the thing. On the 28th, I believe, is when they filed that in there. I'm pretty certain that's when they filed it in there. Magically, on the 28th, a judge who had no standing, who was named in this, filed charges against the chief organizer, got warrants against the chief organizer. That looks it looks illegal to me. But again, here's the person that is named in the grand jury that is getting a warrant against the organizer of the grand jury. Then when he got all, he bonded out of that warrant. And again, the court clerk was not going to let him bond. And one of the deputies had to say, if you don't let him bond, I'm letting him go because that ain't right. So then at that same time, the judge, who would not hear his kid's case, so he's got a kid that's being abused. He brings that up. Judge won't hear it. They postpone it 3 weeks, which again is problematic. It's against the law. But this judge who says, I can't hear that, magically that afternoon stays late and he gets 5 more warrants for this guy. Puts a $1 million bond. And here's really something sketchy. The DA is the one who signs off on this, is also mentioned in the grand jury. That's pretty problematic. So here's people named in the grand jury who are getting multiple warrants, putting a $1 million bond, which is totally ridiculous, $1 million bond on him. And again, one of the big things is that they backdated that grand jury. So, I mean, that they backdated the warrant. They backdated the arrest. So they did it on the 28th, but we have much evidence. We have evidence to show that on September 2nd, it had never been filed. And then after it got filed on September 2nd, they backdated it to the 28th. Those are all of that stuff extremely problematic. But here comes the biggest problem in that grand jury. The judge kicked the grand jury out. He came back and he said, I'm not going to look at McCall's motion to quash. I'm not going to look at y'all's motion because they're all moot, because he received a letter. Bob, I'm going to hold that letter up. I hope everybody can read that letter. And that's a letter from the Secretary of Election. And it says, pursuant to the Oklahoma statute, Title 38, Section 106, Payne County Election Board has determined the number of signers of said petition that are qualified electors within the county. Payne County Election Board received 2,540 signatures and certifies that 2,311 valid signatures are contained in the petition. The original petition documents, Payne County Election Board research and request for removal of names and signature of grand jury petitions are herewithin returned to the Payne County Court Clerk. Okay, so that's saying we counted all these. Here's how many there are. Here's how many we threw out, and we've sent it over, and here's our certified number. Okay, now here's the problem with that. The problem is that I wrote, and I said, I'm writing to request. Now, this is to the distinguished chairman, Walravan, okay? Now, he's the chairman of that election committee, okay? And I wrote, distinguished chairman, Walravan, I'm writing to request verification that signatures for grand jury petition GJ 25-1 in Payne County have been certified by the Payne County Election Board. On September 18th, 2025, it was presented in the courtroom by the Honorable Judge Jason Reese that signatures had been, in fact, certified by the Election Board. However, there are no records from the Election Board that would show this has taken place. Can you please verify the board has certified petition signatures? This is what he wrote. I cannot verify the Payne County Election Board, as in myself, Republican member, the Democrat member, and the Election Board Secretary, certified signatures for GJ 25-1 in Payne County. The Payne County Election Board, 3 members, did not meet, review, or certify signatures. Now, Bob, that means somebody's lying. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
Okay, so we got, and here's what's funny. We raised this in court. We said, Judge, how did you certify them signatures? Because the board never met, on record. And he says, not my problem. Well, it is his problem. That's a big problem. And so we turned around and we appealed that. Here's the deal, Bob. They've got this information. And whether It's problematic because this is the election board falsifying numbers. This is equivalent to election fraud, okay? It's equivalent to election fraud. Now, a judge gets presented good evidence that there's a problem. Not saying that what you got to do is determine who's telling the truth. Pretty easy to determine that, Bob. You go get the other board members. You go talk to this lady right here. Did you really meet? You do an investigation. Now, here's what's funny. Our judge didn't even bother to even check out the evidence, the overwhelming evidence that something's wrong. So we appealed this to the Supreme Court Justice. Okay, now that's a guy named Rowe. So Chief Justice Dustin Rowe. Okay, now here's the problem. Chief Justice Dustin Rowe is named in this. Chief Justice Dustin Rowe cannot comment on this. So we send this up. We send this up and say, hey, you can't, this, you got to void this and you got to void his order and you got to put this grand jury back. He came back and said, y'all are a 5013C and I'm going to kick this out December 8th. If y'all don't show up with an attorney, because 5013Cs must have an attorney and 5013Cs can't file a grand jury. Now, this is kind of funny, Bob, because that's one of the issues that McCall's team brought up. They called us a 5013C. We had to go get the group that was named similar to us and prove we wasn't a 5013C. We did that in court. So here's what's funny. This Dustin Rowe, this Chief Rowe, he's only looking at the file. He's not supposed to be talking to anybody else, just looking at the file. If he would have looked at the file, then he would have saw 100% that argument is already done. That argument's been settled. So when he comes back and says, I'm going to terminate y'all, then one can assume that somebody has been talking to him, because he surely ain't looking at the file, because the file is real clear that's not true. So he ain't looking at the file, so it seems obvious somebody's talking to him. Well, there's only somebody that's making that accusation, and that's McCall and his lawyer, okay? So it does seem pretty evident, and again, that's why we need an investigation into obstruction, because it seems evident they're having improper conversations with this Supreme Court justice. So I write him back in a response and say, one, if you looked at the file, you'd have seen it. Two, it seems pretty obvious you're having any inappropriate conversations with this group over here. But three, how in the world are you going to rule on your own case? Now, Bob, do you not think that the Supreme Court justice, the head attorney, the head lawyer, the head judge over the entire state should know he ain't supposed to rule on his own case? What do you think, Bob?
I don't know.
Well, I would say that's pretty simple. You don't need a law degree.
It makes no sense.
Well, here's the deal. Anybody you don't need a law degree to know you can't rule on your own case. If you're mentioned, Bob, if you were the judge and you got charged with murder, do you think you ought to be able to set over your own murder case?
Yeah.
Wonder, Bob, you remember how I always used to say, when DOC investigates herself, when old JJ investigates JJ, he gets off every time. I think it's the same rule with that old judge. And if you look up the law, it says if he has a personal interest or if he has anything to gain, he can't do it. And anything he rules on from there on would be void, if I understand the reading correctly. So I'm pretty certain that's what it says. But here's what's funny. We get a reply, but it ain't from him. It's from Judge Winchester. So he let Judge Winchester come over, and he says, well, we've looked at this, and y'all are correct, and we're going to take this under advisement. So here's what's funny, Bob. By having Judge Winchester, Justice Rowe is admitting that, guess what? He was wrong. That's as close as you'll ever get to them saying I was wrong because he switched judges. So we were right. But here's what's funny. Now, this is the first grand jury. So again, what we're appealing on is hardcore evidence that there has been fraudulent numbers counting. And we have good evidence, and we have more evidence of this. We have even some better evidence, okay, of some hanky-panky, some really, hinky stuff going on, okay? Now, Judge Dustin Rowe comes back because Judge Winchester said, we're going to take it under advisement. Then Rowe comes back and answers. Now, how'd he get back in the case? He done admitted he ain't supposed to be in there. Here he comes sneaking back in the back door. And guess what? He says, well, we're going to uphold this judge's ruling. And I'm kind of paraphrasing all the stuff, but we're going to uphold that because you didn't put that on a cardstock cover. Bob, we didn't put our appeal. We didn't give a cover on cardstock. Now, we're talking about kids being abducted. We're talking about multiple rape cases that have now been put on a national attention. And this judge is going to say, well, you didn't cover it pretty enough. And so,
is that the same case where the Attorney General didn't do anything on it?
Here's the deal. We got the Attorney General named in the second one. We should have named him in the first one, but we got him named in the second one. This is still the first one. Now, I have written the Attorney General and said, hey, this obstruction stuff needs investigated because they're obviously working together to try to kill this thing. And it ain't even hard to see that. And so anyways, he says we didn't put a pretty enough cover. Now, here's what's funny. Some people down in Grady County, which they're accusing me of, that's the ones they said was a 501(c)(3) was the ones in Grady County. They're saying I'm part of, but we already proved I'm not a part of it. We already proved we weren't the same, okay? So now they're saying, oh, he's 501(c)(3). Now they say, okay, he's proved it a second time. He's not part of 501(c). Cool. Now we're not going to answer him because he didn't put it on a pretty cover, okay? Now, here's what's funny. Grady County did file a grand jury that I was no part of. They had to file a petition, or they had to file a motion to get the Supreme Court to look at it. Now, here's what's funny. Mine gets looked at like that. Not because JJ's involved, because McCall's involved. They're getting this thing pushed, done. Grady County's takes about a year to answer. So how does one take a year and how do you get another one immediately? But here's what's funny. Grady County's didn't have no cardstock cover either, but they answered Grady County's, but they didn't answer mine. That's going to be a good question to ask that appellate court judge who's on the case, who's mentioned on the case, subject of the case, should never even hear this thing, has no business hearing it, but yet, guess what? Bam, here we go. So that brings us to where we are today. So instead of waiting around for them to rule on did fraud occur, which obviously it did, but we know they're going to play that. So we filed a second grand jury. Similar to the first, we put more people on it. We put more judges. We put the entire Supreme Court justice because of this kind of act that we're talking about, because they will cover up fraud. We put the judicial complaints because we've turned over all this and they've done absolutely nothing. So we put them on there. So we got this entire group. So when we file it, Judge Reese has to recuse. He sends it to another judge who sends it to another judge who sends it to Supreme Court judge. Now, Bob, when they send that, they're supposed to notify us, the Payne County parents group, who is made up of 16 people, okay? So it ain't JJ filing it. It's 16 prominent people in the community, a good standing, okay? So they get the first one, they recuse. They don't get a hold of us. Second one, they recuse. They never get a hold of us. We go right up to Supreme Court. Now, obviously, all these people who are named are recusing. So we get to old Dustin Rhodes, Supreme Court Justice, again, top guy, ought to know the law. What does he do? He says, well, I'm going to recuse, but before I do, I'm going to handpick my person who I want. Bob, you can't do that. You can't. Oh, I'm going to get my best friend to take this over. So I'll get her and then I'll recuse. That is totally wrong, Bob. Can't do it, okay? Now, I guess it can if you're a Supreme Court judge. I guess you break the law and violate all misconducts and ethical things. I mean, it's totally unethical. It's judicial misconduct. It's judicial abuse. He's going to handpick his person, okay? Then they turn around and right off the bat, she says, the grand jury doesn't meet. It's not sufficient. Well, Bob, they already found it sufficient. How does one judge find it sufficient and then another judge? And again, if they had kicked it out for not being sufficient, you can make that argument. But we didn't get kicked out for not being sufficient. We got kicked out because we didn't get the appropriate signatures, which we can prove were false. Now, again, she's going to come back in and say, well, it's not sufficient. She says why. And so we fix it. We go back and fix what she was talking about. She comes back in and says, it's not sufficient. And again, she more or less, Bob, if I read it right, she more or less says that that what we're saying, what we're accusing, that judges and politicians could not be found guilty of a law violation. And that is so bogus because, again, if you are stopping an investigation, if you're obstructing investigation, you're doing these kind of acts, then absolutely you can be charged with crime. So I don't know where she gets her information, but I find it very, very interesting that a judge, Supreme Court justice, can wrongfully hand it off to his handpicked judge, and within 24 hours, she's done, which she didn't have a whole lot of time. She had to rule on it pretty quick, but less than 24 hours, she finds it insufficient when it's already been found sufficient. And then we clean it up for her and she still finds it insufficient. And then here's what's the most amazing part. And Bob, I'm going to hold that for a second, but we're going to talk about under the color of law. Judges cannot commit crime using their bench, okay? So if they're sitting on the bench and allowing all this to go and using their position, that's a big, nasty. Bob, here we are. They filed a motion for sanction. So this is a motion for sanction, and it says now, former Speaker of the House, Charles McCall, and moves the petitioner, Representative Justin Humphrey, be sanctioned in the case to 12 State 2011-1, the court's inherent authority for filing frivolous, repetitious, baseless, defamatory, vexations, petitions seeking to impanel grand juries. Okay. So now here's what's funny. We got the Butler rape case. We got 4 or 5 rape cases like that. Bob, would you call a guy strangling somebody, 2 female victims, strangled them and got 150 hours community service? Would you call that frivolous for us to want to get to the bottom of that?
Yeah.
You think that is just rape's no big deal, Bob? 150 hours, you strangle. One of the girls goes to the hospital and she's, you know what I'm saying? She's 30 seconds, according to the doctor, from dying. And Charles is going to call that frivolous. We got a school teacher who has sex with a 13-year-old. They reduce it down. He does a little county time, gets out and has sex with the 16-year-old, and still gets 11 violations protective order. How in the world can you get 11 violations of protective order against a minor victim and them not doing anything and you're on probation for a sex offense? How about the DA? How about the DA getting caught with 150 videos of child pornography in 22? And to my knowledge, nothing's happened in that case yet. Bob, I can go on and on. How about, do you think those are frivolous? I mean, to call those frivolous, hey, I may have a new pet peeve, Bob. That's a new pet peeve for me, to call rape of females frivolous. And we have many, many more. We have rapes where multiple people are raped and nothing being done on it. And so, again, I don't see how in the world they call that frivolous. And then they're saying I filed multiple, I think is what they said, frivolous, repetitious, Bob. Now, here's what's funny. They go on to accuse me of doing stuff in Grady County. I've never done anything in Grady County. I mean, nothing at all, Bob. I hadn't even taken a signature. I haven't taken a petition around. I didn't sign the petition. I didn't do anything. And they said I did 3 things. In Oklahoma County, they said I filed one. I did not file one in Oklahoma County. I did carry the petition and got signatures for them, which is, again, my right. I don't have to explain to them. I have a right to go out and collect signatures if I want to. There is nothing illegal about that or even wrong about that. And I did help to get some evidence because the judge refused to take evidence. And then I did write the appellate court notifying them, hey, this judge is refusing to take evidence, and I got the evidence to him, and he won't even have a hearing. And to this date, he has not had a hearing. So, Bob, I mean, why would that be frivolous? If I notify the court that a judge is not doing what he's supposed to, I would think that would be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma County. And so then I don't know what they're talking about the other counties. I have no idea, but I have filed twice. But now here's what's funny, Bob. I did not file the first one. I signed a petition. Okay. But I signed a petition with a senator, another representative, and a former senator. Okay. So there was 4 of us that had that 3 of us were in current representatives, senators, legislators, 1 a former legislator. Okay. Now, why is it that they handpicked me? Now, this time we filed 16 parents or 16 community people, prominent community citizens filed on this. How in the world can they pick me, single me out and say, only JJ Humphrey is responsible for all of this, and talk smack? Boy, they talk ugly about me, Bob. I mean, really hurt my feelings. And again, saying that I made defamatory accusations. I didn't make no, I mean, if it's true, it's not defamatory. If it's true, then, again, I don't even think. In fact, one of the things that I got kind of tickled at, Bob, they kicked it out because they were saying we didn't give enough information. And now they're saying, well, you make defamatory remarks. It's like, well, which one is it? Is I gave too much or did I give too little? Which one is it? You know what I mean? What's your thoughts, Bob?
Well, it's very puzzling.
Well, here's where I'm at. We accused Charles McCall of obstructing on a hearing. So when we're going to have a committee hearing, that he tried to obstruct that, and that he obstructed when we ordered an OSBI investigation into multiple cases. One of them was kids being waterboarded, mental health children being waterboarded. Another was
on that. All you're asking for, you can't prove it. All you're asking them to do is investigate it. Is that correct?
Bob, that's all we ask. Come in and let us look at it. Come in and let's investigate it. And he killed that we feel like he did. We want to prove it. We're asking for the opportunity to prove it. We think we can. So we're asking to prove that. And yet, guess what? Here we are again. So, if you think that he won't kill something, guess what? He's right here again doing the exact same thing. What is he doing in this grand jury that has much, much more to do than with him? These are kids being put in homes where they're being abused. This is DHS fraud. This is all kinds of stuff. We're alleging rape cases, all kinds of stuff. And yet, what's he doing? He's coming in and saying, nope, let's kill it. We don't care. Even writes in the motion, hey, this needs to be done. I mean, that's what I took it. This needs to be done. Yes, this is a bad stuff, but I don't want my name attached to it. My name shouldn't be attached to it. Now, you know what, Bob? I mean, I've been subject to a grand jury. I didn't like it. I didn't like it a bit. But guess what? Who am I to say, you know what you do? You let the process. That's why we have a jury. Is if you didn't do it, guess what? They're going to find you didn't do it. And that's what we do. We go in and look. If it's a lie, then guess what? Then it proves to be a lie. Or if it's not worth looking into and we got other stuff looking into, then yours gets moved to the back. La-di-da. Okay. But you're going to kill the whole thing and you're going to let rapists walk free and walk the streets. And again, this shows your attitude. This shows, to me, if you want to look at motives and you want to look at patterns and you want to look at patterns of abuse, guess what? What I'm accusing and saying why we put him on there, he's pretty much demonstrated by the way that he's handled this grand jury that absolutely he will kill a grand jury, he will kill an investigation, and he will try to threaten. And again, that's all this is. When you say, I'm going to fine you $50,000 and I'm going to pick you out of all these 16, how do you identify if 16 people filed it? How can he just pick me? Say, well, JJ's the one. JJ's the one that's responsible. Everybody listens to JJ. I guess I have a lot more clout than what I
Well, okay. Now this one, help me understand this. You signed it.
This one I did file it. This is the only one that I actually went down personally and filed.
Okay, you filed this one.
Yes.
And so it's kind of confusing, JJ.
Well, it is, Bob. There's a lot of moving parts in this, but the bottom line is 16 people who are prominent citizens were so mad over the way they handled the first one, over this judge killing with massive evidence and won't go back. I mean, if you don't look at anything else, you just look at, we got that kicked out on election fraud, okay? On false signatures that at least deserve an investigation. We at least ought to look at who's telling the truth. I believe the chairman. I think the chairman's absolutely 1,000% telling the truth. I have some other evidence that would tend to back him up and would make the other person look like they weren't telling the truth. But don't you think if we have two letters from the people who sat on the board, one saying we never counted and one saying absolutely here's all the stuff we counted, something ain't jihad, something is wrong, and that would warrant a pause and an investigation and a look into. Not only did the judge refuse to look at it, but the appellate judge who is on the petition, who should never touched it, refused to look at it because it didn't get put on pretty cardstock. Now, what a reason. But then he turned around and heard somebody else's who didn't get put on cardstock. So how in the world? Then we file, those 16 parents get mad and say that's enough. And we file a second grand jury with all these prominent people on there. And now somehow Charles McCall says, well, JJ Humphrey is the one who ought to be held responsible. And he going all over the state. And again, that's fraud. He's committing fraud on the court when he says I've gone all over the state and I may have signed some grand jury petitions, possibly I think I may have signed Garfield's and I may have signed Tulsa's, but I didn't go up there and collect signatures. I didn't do anything. And Bob, is it illegal to sign on as a person who just states, I think this would warrant, I think this is worth looking into? I mean, is that frivolous? Is that wrong?
Well, I don't understand if what's wrong with all this. Well, why would the judge over?
Well, that's my deal. Why is the judge allowing these people to come in and try to disrupt, try to disorganize, try to obstruct? Again, here's what I was saying. You know, they can sit up here and say, well, that's a legal motion. That's a legal motion. This is a legal motion. It is until you start knowing that what you're filing is fraudulent, until you know that what you're filing is not true, until you know that, hey, the only reason you're filing that motion is because my name's on it. You put it in a petition. You put it in the motion. Hey, everything's worth looking into, except my name's on it. You know, I mean, that's pretty much what they're saying. That's JJ Humphrey's version. But Bob, it's the
tell me this. Where are we at on? Where do you stand at on this?
Well, I got to go for a sanction hearing the 23rd, and again, I've asked for a sit-down motion in what you call an in-camera motion with the judge, which that should include everybody, because this ain't one. This is not JJ, and that's another thing. They talk about ex parte communications. Then they weed me out and they forget the other 15 people. Well, guess what? That's ex parte. We're all one group. We filed one group. You can't cut out, say, well, we're just going to deal with this one. Can't do that. When they did not have communications from one judge to the next judge to the next judge, ex parte communications, they picked a judge without allowing us any. We never even knew he had it picked till it's already done. And guess what? It's McCall's attorney knows everything before we know it. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty interesting. He's in it. I mean, they've got him looped in like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's running the show. And again, you know, he'll answer stuff for them. I was looking at one deal the other day. It looks like he's answering for the judge. Is he representing the judge? Let me ask you this, Bob. How can McCall say he's going to sanction me for Grady County? Does he represent Grady County? How can he sanction me for Oklahoma County? Does he represent Oklahoma County? You know, I mean, where does he get off saying he's Lord over all the Oklahoma and that he can sanction me for all of these people? And where does he come up with this arbitrary, well, I'm going to fine him $1,000 per grand jury. And, oh, I'm going to represent the judicial complaints as well. Going to represent them, and I'm going to fine him $5,000 for mentioning judicial complaints. When everybody knows the judicial complaint ain't worth, they're worthless as tits on a boar hog. I mean, everybody knows that. They do absolutely nothing, totally worthless in my opinion. And again, for me to call them out and say you didn't do your job and put you on a grand jury to investigate, are you doing your job? Is that frivolous? I don't think it's frivolous. I personally haven't seen them doing anything. So why is it? And again, Bob, how many times do you think anybody's put that judicial complaints on a grand jury?
I have no idea.
I would say zero. So when they're saying that I'm repetitively doing something frivolously and without merit or anything else, guess what? No, it is not. We have called them, people have put in and said, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. And they have done absolutely nothing in these cases. Is it wrong to call them in and say, why are you not doing your job? And are you covering for these judges? Are you not doing your job?
What you have right now, is that all you have today?
Well, here's the deal. I'm going to read this to you. Section 242 of Title 18 makes it a crime for a person acting under color of law to willfully deprive a person of his rights or privilege protected by the Constitution of the laws of the United States. Bob, it's my constitutional right to be able to file a grand jury. It's in the Constitution. I'm only doing what I have a right to do. For the purpose of Section 242, acts under the color of law include acts not only done by the federal, state, or local levels within lawful authority, but also acts done beyond the bounds of that official law authority if the acts are done while the officials is purporting or to pretending to act in the performance of his or her official duties. Person acting under color of law, meaning, and again, color of law being if they're a judge and they're doing something judge, they're acting under color of law if they're doing something illegal. Within the meaning of the statute, including police officers, prison guards, other law enforcement officials, as well as judges, care providers in public health facilities, and others who are acting as public officials. It is not necessary that the crime be motivated by animus towards the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familiar status, or national origin of the victim. The offense is punishable by a range of imprisonment up to life or death penalty, depending upon the circumstances of the crime and the resulting injury. Okay? Meaning they can't use their position to do illegal stuff, to cover up and to not pursue a grand jury. And again, how does these judges, and if you look at, I've got other documents that are saying when a judge, if a judge does something that affects him personally, so if he improperly rules on something that he should have recused out of, then guess what? That becomes void. So like for this judge to appoint this lady when he had a personal interest in it, guess what? Everything that happened from right there should stop, should be void, and we should go back and he should follow the law on how he should have recused, how he should have presented that to another court, or what should be done. He should have had communications with these 16 petitioners to talk about that. So again, everything needs to be made void. And I'm asking for an investigation into why Charles McCall can appear to obstruct and appear to threaten, and they can call it color. This is where color of law. Is it legal what he's filing? Can he file a motion? Absolutely. But why is he filing the motion? And he's filing it, if he wants to talk about frivolous, making up fraudulent information, saying I'm involved in 3 Grady County Grand Juries, is a lie. That's a fraud on the court. That's perjury. That's a crime. Okay. And they know it because they've already tried to tie me in with that twice, and we've had it overruled twice that they've been told that's not true in a courtroom. On court record, they've been told twice that's not true. And yet they turn around and file it again in this sanction. And they how did that judge find that out the previous time? Again, it seems like they're having improper communication. So again, rule twice, I'm not involved with them, yet they come in and say, I should be sanctioned because I'm involved with them. Now that seems pretty intentional. That seems willful. That seems knowingly.
Well, when you sign something, obviously you had to sign something on that petition. So does that petition not have the person who got it together, got it put up?
Here's the deal, Bob. Everything we sign, and it's a pain in the butt, because if I want to file something, I got to go back and get all 16 people, including myself, 15 others to sign. I can't just sign. I got to go get all 15 to sign any kind of motion, any kind of thing that we're doing back in. Now, every once in a while, where they're just addressing me, I could go in there and say, okay, because you're just singling me out, I'm going to file this, okay? But if I file something officially, I got to go get all 16. So here's the question. How do they single me out when it was 16 people filed this? Now, I'm the guy who took it down and actually turned it in. So, but
why were you the guy to do that?
Huh?
Why were you picked to do that?
I don't know, just because I know how, or because I don't let them intimidate me. I happen to be handy. We had to get all these signatures together. I got them all together. I had the paperwork. Ma'am, I went down there and filed it. Ain't no big deal. Just, hey, stamp this, deliver it to them. But it's in behalf of all 16 of us. So it's not like, all I did was just take it in. I was the delivery boy, and that's all good and fine. But on the first one, guess what? I didn't take it in. And on the first one, I signed with 3 other legislators. So how is it that you're saying I'm frivolous and not the rest of these are frivolous? You had other legislators. And oh, by the way, one of those legislators got off, and it seems pretty evident that he was threatened to get off. And so again, if you want to talk about why, okay, you can file a motion to quash, to kill it. Okay, is that illegal? Yeah, that's legal. But if you file in on the same day and the chief guy organizer gets arrested not once but twice by bogus $1 million, guess what? That looks a little hinky. That looks a little sketchy. It looks like there's some coordination going on with everybody. What's the likelihood multiple judges and a political person all file on the exact same day, and all this gets done on the same day? That's what we like to call a little quinky-dink. Could happen, but it looks pretty sketchy. Then you file a motion, and again, what's your motion? I don't like being named, and the judge is going to go, oh, we're going to give you a hearing on that. Absolutely. And I'd ask for a hearing on kids being abused, and he wouldn't give me a hearing, but he'll give old McCall a hearing, no problem. He's going to let this guy that was signed on get out. Again, all of this should not be being done when he's letting it being done. And so, again, but did that guy get threatened? Why would a doctor, so here's a pretty intelligent guy, a doctor sign the petition, call me and say, JJ, you think we're going to catch heat on this petition? I said, well, yeah, I think we're going to catch heat. I don't figure you'll catch as much heat as I catch, but I said, you catch a little heat, but I'll catch a whole lot more. I said, but it's the right thing to do. So guess what? He knew that. He knew that going in. And then he comes back and says, well, I didn't read the petition and I didn't understand the petition, so I went off of it. It ain't very long, and he's a doctor. I bet he can read better than old JJ. What do you want to bet, Bob? I never went to medical school. So anyways, it's a pretty safe bet to say something ought to be investigated, that he got threatened. You know what I'm saying? And he got off there. And then here's what's funny. He collected signatures and we couldn't get the signatures back. That is another problem in and by itself. That's obstructing the whole process. So again, we have them all entering in same day, arresting the organizer, putting $1 million bond on him, falsely accusing him. We prove all that. We can prove coordination between much of that. Also, we turn around and then we get fraudulent numbers. We get a fraudulent count, and they know it. And it looks like, very much like, the judge is having improper communications with the election board. And he said that on record, Bob. He said that on the courtroom. Well, I called over and I got, well, Judge, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. So again, we're having improper communications. We're getting fraudulent numbers. That right there is enough to say, okay, let's stop. They don't even pay attention to it. Goes to the person who is on it themselves. The warrant issued on my guy was written by the district attorney who's named in that petition. You can't make this stuff up. You talk about corrupt as hell. It is corrupt as hell. And then you got McCall. Oh, there's nothing to see here. frivolous. It's frivolous that they'll falsely arrest a guy. It's frivolous that they'll sign on when they're on the petition to arrest a guy. It's frivolous to commit fraud, election fraud. All of that's frivolous. And what they're wanting to check, rapes, DAs getting away with child pornography, and many, many, many other things. Oh, no, frivolous. So
I don't understand why nobody would investigate that. When you had
I tell you why,
the doctor there talking about it, brought it up, said that he's going on, but yet nobody wants to investigate.
Bob, you want me to tell you why that they won't? One, because you'll lose your chairmanship and you'll lose your position if you do, if you're a legislator. Two, you will get a $50,000 sanction aimed at you, which most people would be just, you know what I'm saying? That'd scare everybody, lots of people, and that would intimidate. And that's what it's meant to do. That's what they're going to hide under the color law. Oh, we're legally trying to help the state of Oklahoma. We're worried about the state. When we block everything, kids can be waterboarded, we'll stop it. Children molested in daycare or juvenile detention centers, we won't investigate that. Feds come in and prove we're right on that, by the way. And here in Payne County, we have, kids being put in homes where we know they're being abused. We have DHS fraud. We have rape after rape after rape that is not being investigated appropriately. And we have DAs not getting investigated appropriately. But yet, guess what? Nope, that's all frivolous. And we're going to fine old JJ $50,000. And my deal is, come get you some, because I can promise you, I'm not backing up. I'm not backing up one ounce behind it. And again, I don't have personal vendetta towards anybody, but this is going on across the entire state. And this is what's happening. These appellate courts are covering up for all of the judges. There is gross abuse. And again, Bob, we see it all over the United States. It's not just happening here. We're seeing this kind of conduct across the United States, but we have it big time right here in Oklahoma. And it's time somebody stand up and I'll just tell you, Bob, this is my 1776 moment. This is the way I look at it. This is my time to step up. Am I going to defend what's right? Am I going to defend, making sure the kids don't get waterboarded, sexually abused, rapists don't get to walk the street with 150 hours community service and many, many other.
Bob, what ended up being on that kid?
What's that?
The rape on that young man there at Stillwater.
Yeah.
First sentence was a real high one. The second
one Bob, I think they were looking at 77 years. If they'd have come down to 25, 15, something like that, you wouldn't hear me scream. You know what I'm saying? If they'd have come down to something reasonable, 77 years was a heck of a long time for a 17-year-old. But again, it was pretty serious. I mean, he 30 seconds away from killing somebody, filmed yourself raping somebody multiple times. I mean, rape by instrumentation, it's pretty serious charges, Bob. I mean, but
what happened?
Well, they reduced it down to 150 hours community service. So the guy walks with 150 hours community service. When he turns 19, the whole thing gets expunged. He won't even have a record of rape on his record. So, Bob, that's the kind of stuff we see going on in Payne County, and that's the kind of stuff that Charles McCall wants to stop from getting investigated. That's what he's saying is frivolous, and I disagree with you. And I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to put them on the stand, and I'm going to make them say it. If you think that's frivolous, say it. Because what do you want to bet? He won't sit there and say that's frivolous. He's going to say, well, I'm not saying rape's frivolous. And then I'm going to turn around and ask him, hey, Charles, get ready, because you put it in writing that DHS, you've gotten up I don't know how many places and said DHS is broken. DHS is broken, needs to be fixed. Here we are trying to fix it. What are you doing? You're standing in the way, just like you stood in the way a couple of years ago, just like you've never done anything for the last 8 years that you were there. How did it get broken? You were right up there at the top the whole time. So again, you know what I'm saying? You say it's broken, but when somebody like me tries to fix it, you stand in the way, as you have with many other things. And I've kept my mouth shut until you came and sanctioned me for 50. So if we're gonna play, we're gonna get rough. Well, let's get rough. I'm ready to come out swinging. And the best thing I've got is to notify the public exactly what's going on. So there's a court of law, and then there's a court of public opinion, and we'll try this case in both places. We're going to try it in court of public opinion. But I will tell you this, Bob, something interesting. Why is it that this is one of the biggest things happening and the media does not want to report it?
Yeah, that's interesting there.
Well, Bobby, you want me to tell you something else? I've gotten more calls on people getting killed in DOC here lately than Carter got Oates. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting called all the time. You turn it over to the media, guess what? Nothing. You're not hearing nothing. They do not want to report on what's actually going on in the government in all of these issues, because it's, again, there's a lot of stories right there getting totally covered up, whether it's DHS, whether it's DOC, whether it's grand juries. And again, you know, Butler rape case, I was on big podcast, got a couple of million. I was on Newsmax. I was in Newsmax magazine. I was on this new national news. I think they showed some of this on CNN, if I remember. Again, all these national news agencies reporting. Guess what? I never got interviewed by. I don't think I got one. If I did, it's only one.
JJ, we've done a lot of podcasts that year. How big of a number is it, you think, that has reviewed our podcast?
Generally, Bob, most time about 2,000 to 3,000. I think here lately is what I looked at the other day. What's funny, I'm getting way more by doing videos on my Facebook. I do videos, and man, I may get several thousand on this. Probably 2,000 to 3,000. So again, but I would ask.
That can't be. I'm talking about all the podcasts we've done.
Oh, total, Lord, there ain't no telling.
Well, that's what I was talking. That's what I was asking you, if you had any idea.
No. At one time, we were getting a lot more than what we are right now. I think that has to do with there was some switch in how that where people can get in. I get a lot of people saying they can't find us, can't get on here. That's a big complaint. I get that all the time. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I can go out and put a video on, say pretty much the same thing that we have today. And again, it's, you know.
Seems like on one of those videos, I can't remember which one, there was something like 65,000.
Bob, I did a video the other day on that mosque up there in Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
And I didn't even do a video. That was still shots and a comment. So I went in there and took pictures and made a comment. And that got right up 450 or 500,000 views. It's 450 or 500. It was right. You know, it's almost 500,000 views is what we got right there. And so again, we're getting a lot of attention, but the media refuses to report. This should be the biggest news story. This is the top justice, you know, doing things that just totally, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure this is totally wrong. And again, for one of the governor candidate, and I'll give you an example. We put Drew Edmondson, and hey, I'm gonna come right out and say, I'll come out and publicly say, if it come down to Drew Edmondson and Charles McCall, you know who I'm gonna vote for, Bob? And I'm saying this publicly. I don't mind. I'm an open book. I'm gonna vote for Charles. I mean, I don't agree with what Charles is doing to me. I don't agree with what he's done on some of this stuff, but all in all, he's not a bad person. I think he does do some good things. And I will tell you this, I've turned all this same stuff over to Drummond, and Drummond did the exact same thing. McCall's on it. So we did both of them. But here's now what's funny. You don't see Drummond up here filing motions to kill this. Drummond's just sat back, kept his mouth shut, which is a smart move. And McCall has shown he ain't smart on this, because he has made a big stink, and it's going to come back on him. And again, I've tried to keep my mouth shut and not mention him. I always say politicians or politician this, politician that. And here's what's funny. I even told them they ought to take him off that first grand jury, because I told them, I said, hey, you watch, he'll use his position and his power to try to kill that grand jury. And if y'all smart, you wouldn't even list him. You just bring him in the back door, go show the evidence, bring him in the back door. But we went ahead and put him on there, and guess what? I was pretty much right. Well, the people who put the grand jury petition together that signed it.
16 people?
These 15, we put both him and Drummond. The other 4 that did the original 5 that did the original petition, I was telling them, hey, y'all leave him off. And guess what? We wanted to go ahead, and I'm okay. The things that they're accusing, I believe are true and factual. I believe it, or I wouldn't be signing it. So again, but I predicted what he would do, and sure enough, just like it wasn't hard to predict. You don't have to be a prophet. He is using his money, his power. Lawyers come in here, try to fight this thing, try to kill it. And I believe it's obstruction. It's obstruction under the color of law. That's what I'm going to say, is you're using legal means to try to obstruct and kill a grand jury. That's what you're doing. You're using your money, you're using your power, you're using your influence with the court, and you're trying to kill a grand jury. Now, that's what it looks like to me. And I'd say that's because what it is. It looks like what it is. And so, again, that's what I'm going to say. And then he's going to turn around and try to come after me alone and single me out, and to try to file a $50,000. And again, for the court to allow that is just so wrong. In and by itself is so wrong. How did they allow me to be singled out from all these other petitioners? Again, how did the court say? The court went, yeah, we can do that, no problem. And again, it's impossible. It's 16 people filed it, not one person filed it. How are you going to say one person's responsible? So again,
we're going to have to go.
Yep, we're over time, Bob. So we're going to have to get off here. Guys, y'all share this. This is an important story. This is something that needs to be talked about. Again, I've kind of kept my mouth shut. I just want to do everything in the grand jury. But since we're going to just come out and sanction me, and we're going to get down and dirty, well, guess what? I'll get down and dirty with them. So it's all right. We're going to call it all out. Y'all stay tuned. Keep up with this story. It's huge. Bob, we'll holler at you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you,